It's Wednesday, August 16th. Welcome to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Chaplinsky, and a bit earlier this week, we spoke with State Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff about the delay in approving a state budget. Now, Senator Duff, a Democrat, defends a recent labor concessions vote and talks about a letter Malloy sent out to towns and cities recently. We also spoke with him about a Norwalk woman who faces deportation. We'll have that interview for you later in today's show. We also have our drawing conclusions with editorial cartoonist Doug Smith. But first, happy to welcome on our editorial director, John Kovach, to take a look at some of the stories we're following this week, including one town leader's response to Malloy's financial information request and the local discussion around the violence in Charlottesville. John, as always, so glad you could join us.
Glad to be here, Kate.
All right, now one of the first things we have to talk about, New Canaan Advertiser reporting that First Selectman Rob Malazzi basically saying Malloy can get this financial information for himself. We spoke about this last week, actually, that a letter was sent out, Governor Malloy asking towns and cities for a lot of financial information. And that was a big concern because as there's still no state budget, towns and cities are worried about what they're going to be getting from the state. I think New Canaan gets something around $2 million from the state each year. So I thought it was kind of interesting.
Well,
a little bite back there.
Rob Malazzi makes a valid point. All of that information is readily available. It's compiled by certain organizations, such as CCM, I believe, compiles it, the Conference of Municipalities. The CERC strategic profiles are available, which break down towns' expenditures and whatnot. But I still, and I said this last week, and I'll play off the gag I did on Coffee Break last Thursday. You know, it's akin to me asking how much do you have in your wallet right now, because that's how much I'm going to ask to borrow from you. And that's where I feel we are with this. The state better well know how much money it's giving to the towns in terms of aid to the towns. And the other stuff is all readily available. And A, it's up to you to follow it, and B, my expenditures, I control my money if I'm the town, not the state. Right, and I could see not wanting to put the staff members in town hall on this to compile it all again when it's already available in other ways to the governor. So I haven't seen that yet from any other town leaders, but I thought it was interesting that Rob Malazzi came out with that. Now, Rob's not running for re-election, so he's in a very good position to do that as an elected official. He's lost the caucus. He said he's not going to primary, so he can really stand up as much as he wants, and there'll be no consequences. Though I think most of the people in Republican-heavy New Canaan are going to applaud his move, and I think a lot of people in Republican-heavy Fairfield County are going to applaud that move, because I just find it a bit forward, almost to the point of brusque. Tell us how much you have, how much you're spending, what you're spending it on, and then we'll get back to you. It's kind of, again, it's me asking you how much do you have in your wallet, because in 5 minutes I'm going to ask you to borrow all of it. Yeah, and we do ask Senator Duff this same question about this letter and his response to it, so that coming up later in the show. Kind of a sobering report this week from ctmirror.org. They do a really good job reporting information like this, but this was kind of in response to what we saw in Charlottesville. And they spoke with the Southern Poverty Law Center about hate groups in Connecticut. Now, I think this is interesting, John, because a lot of times I think we can look at this problem as elsewhere in the country. I think some people maybe forget that there's also these kinds of groups right here in our state. I mean, I think the headline of the CT Mirror story said we may not be ripe for a big rally as what happened in Charlottesville, but there's still that contingent here. And I mean, obviously the internet makes it much easier for these groups to communicate, across state lines and form. And the internet makes it readily available to have a rally. It's not that far for people from Massachusetts, from New York, to come here were there to be a rally. And no, maybe we don't have the population of white supremacists that would cause an incident like Charlottesville, but you still have incidents in our own towns of flyers being distributed, of there have been calls for rallies, and then what I think is more disturbing is when you see the racist graffiti on playgrounds, on tennis courts, and symbols that I'm not certain the people who are painting them understand. That I'm not sure they understand the sacrifices that people of the United States of America made to stop the Nazis in the 1930s and 40s. And then you're painting a swastika on a tennis court or a playground, and I hope you don't understand it, because if you understand it and you're painting it, we have a deeper problem, and I think in some cases we do.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned those flyers. That was actually in February. That's mentioned in this story as well, but hundreds of printed flyers from a white supremacist group. The flyers read something like "Make America White Again," and they were thrown around Weston, Wilton, Westport, and Norwalk. I think we also saw some cases in some other towns near here. But just kind of give you an overview of what CT Mirror reported. They said perhaps the leading white supremacist group figure from the state is Kenneth Zralik, described by the Anti-Defamation League as one of the founders of the White Lives Matter movement, which is a small network, they say, of hardcore white supremacists with connections to a variety of hate groups. He and his brother also created the Connecticut group White Wolves in Stratford years ago. Now, there's also a chapter of the ACT for America in Cheshire, also considered a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. The center said that in its 9 years since it was founded by Brigitte Gabriel, ACT, which stands for American Congress for Truth, has grown into far away the largest grassroots anti-Muslim group in America. The group says it's planning a number of America First rallies across the nation on September 9th. Now, a third hate group identified by the Law Center is a black separatist organization known as the New Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Now, Southern Poverty Law calls that a virulently racist and anti-Semitic organization whose leaders have encouraged violence against whites, Jews, and law enforcement officers. So it was a sobering story to read, but you know, there's a lot of information there, and I thought it was really important that they did that story, especially with what we saw over the weekend.
And I think we need to be educated on it, and I don't think we are, because we don't think it happens here. And it does, and we've seen it happen here, and we've seen it in isolated incidents. We've seen it in the distribution of flyers, and people say, why are you giving attention to these neo-Nazi groups, these white supremacist groups? But sunlight is disinfectant. It's when they're allowed to exist in a dark, moldy place and connect with each other on the internet that they get stronger. They pick up members. They find people who feel disenfranchised, who desperately want to feel like they're an oppressed minority and consider themselves one, and who desperately feel that they're somehow being wronged. And the internet's a great place to recruit those, as hate groups such as ISIS, such as the neo-Nazis, such as some of the groups on the other side have done. It's a tremendous recruiting tool, and unless the existence of these groups is exposed so people can talk about them and can watch for warning signs, then they're going to continue to grow, and Charlottesville is just going to become the start of something, and I'm really hoping it's the start of something that's a turning point for the better of this nation that's really too divided right now.
I really hope so too. But staying on the topic of Charlottesville, Kevin Rennie, who's actually been a guest on this show, he's a columnist at the Hartford Courant. He also has a blog, dailyructions.com, and he wrote a blog this week. I'll just read you the title of it. It says, J.R. Romano and a Charlottesville doubter. Republican chairman damages party with dubious video partners. Now, J.R. Romano is the chair of the state GOP. You can read Rennie's blog at dailyructions.com, but he calls out Romano for appearing on a YouTube show called Whiskey Patriots. That's actually a still from it right there, with an alleged Charlottesville doubter. Now, Rennie writes that the other person in that photo, Kyle Reyes, posted an astonishing video on Facebook admitting to a, quote, dark thought on the neo-Nazi violence in Charlottesville. He said in his video, these protesters were not the people we were led to believe they are. None of this adds up. Now, Rennie finally says in his blog that the bizarro fringe is no place from which to lead a major political party. Now, J.R. Romano did talk about social media with the Connecticut Mirror this week, kind of in response to this, and also another member of the party that was called out for a Facebook comment. And Romano said, I think the biggest problem with the social media and digital media era is, I'm certain in all of our lives we've said things, the first thing that came to our mind, that maybe wasn't the right or correct thing to say, right? Romano went on to say, we've all been there, and I think the problem with everyone having access to a video camera and an opinion is you can say stupid things. So that was kind of his general response on social media.
Well, let's expand on that. And the biggest problem also is the ability to sit at a keyboard isolated by yourself, perhaps in the dark with a little tiny light, and type what comes to your head and hit send without thinking about it.
Right.
And
you have to think about it when you're involved.
Before you hit post.
And not only that, but I mean, if you are the chair of the state GOP or you're a member of the, you should be thinking about maybe who you associate with in some of these things. Yes, everybody makes mistakes. Everyone has posted maybe things they regret. But, it was interesting kind of Rennie calling out J.R. Romano for that. And we've talked about J.R. Romano on this show before because he can be kind of a controversial figure. I mean, I think it was a couple years ago he banned a Hearst reporter from attending the GOP convention. He later took it back, but he said that reporter was unfair to Republicans. He's kind of made these... He's been out there.
He makes some...
He's been out there similar in ways to the Donald Trump style a bit with some of his comments.
The grandstand play, the attention-grabbing play. Now, in fairness to him, this photo from Whiskey Patriots, this is long before Charlottesville was taken. So he had, he couldn't have known the extremes here. Now, I don't know enough about the person he was photographed with.
Right.
But, again, you've got to watch who you associate with as well.
And I mean, it's interesting because Kevin Rennie is, conservative, former legislator, so it's just kind of interesting to see his take on it. But you can see that at dailyructions.com. Let's really take a turn on to something happier, John.
Can we?
Can we please?
Can we please? Because I'm just not enjoying the division and and the hatred. I really want, contrary to what people think, we don't come into this business to talk about tearing people down, we really like the uplifting stories for the most part.
I think all of our favorite stories are the uplifting ones, and we just had that last Friday, actually last Thursday. Greenwich's Ben McFadden, who we actually had on the HAN network last year. John, you were with Ben. He helped us interview the Greenwich Cardinal captains.
I'm worried about my job with
I know,
Ben.
He was really good.
Breaks down the game well.
He was really good, and since he interviewed the Cardinals, the Greenwich football captains, he kind of became a member of the team, and the team really took him on, and they just have this great relationship. And so recently, Ben's wish, he has achondroplasia, his wish through Make-A-Wish Connecticut was granted. He's actually in Seattle right now getting to meet the Seahawks, so very exciting for him. But the Greenwich Cardinals, past and present members of the football team, came last week and supported him, and I know we actually have some video from that event. It's just great, so let's check that out right now.
Well, basically, you're going to have 2 fabulous days with the Seahawks. One at their practice, where you're going to meet all the players. You're going to be with 9 other Make-A-Wish families, and you are going to go to the stadium, meet the players, see them practice. You're going to interact with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This one is.
That'll be fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that first day is the practice, right? You're going to meet them all. You're going to watch them practice. It's going to be so cool. You're going to be right in there. And then the next day, you're going to go back again with your family, and you're going to go to a game, and you're going to go on the field.
I know.
And anyways, you're going to have a terrific time. I'm sure you're going to have experiences that are surprises, and you're just going to be right up there and close and watch the game, and you'll be staying at this beautiful hotel the whole time with your family. All of your family will be with you at this, all 4 of you, and it should be just fantastic. So lots of details to come. And I know you're going to meet Russell. And who else do you love on that team?
Richard Sherman?
Oh, yeah, Richard Sherman is so cool. So they'll all be there. They'll all be there. And I'm sure they'll have lots of fun surprises for you, okay? And you have the time of your life.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming here today for me. Thank you, Miss Kathy and Miss Jill, for making my wish come true. You guys are the best. Thank you, Greenwich Cardinal football team, for letting me be part of your team. I can't wait for this season, when we win every game, including FCX and state championships.
That was the best thank you speech ever from Ben McFadden of Greenwich, and his prediction for the FCX season coming up, John.
Taking notes on that, Ben.
Yeah,
We'll check in with you.
All right, so that was just a great story. And again, thanks to Make-A-Wish Connecticut for letting us be a part of it. And I know it was sponsored by Splash Car Wash. And Coach John Marinelli gave Ben 2 jerseys, one home and one away for the upcoming season. So
you're going to see Ben a lot at Greenwich High School games again this year.
All right, very cool. And John, thank you for joining me.
Anytime.
We're going to step out for a break. When we come back, a conversation I had earlier this week with State Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff coming up on CT Pulse after this.
Things are heating up this summer. See some of the world's best tennis players at the Connecticut Open presented by United Technologies. Enjoy trucks, entertainment, and special events throughout the week, August 18th through the 26th. Get tickets at connecticutOpen.org.
Now teeing off, Paul Miller from Miller Nissan in Fairfield.
Excuse me, Mr. Miller. What about my new Sentra?
Right now, lease a 2017 Sentra S for only $97 a month.
He is never going to retire.
At In Sports Trumbull, the game is always on inside.
Registration is now open for our fitness training programs for high school athletes. The In Sports Performance Center is offering blast speed classes, athletic functional movement assessments, and both men's and women's elite speed and strength training. Our premier programs help bring athletes to the next level. Call 203-268-1214 for more information. Like and follow us on Facebook.
Celebrate summer with fresh made-to-order picnic boxes from Walter Stewart's Market. We have delicious summery selections from buttermilk fried chicken to grilled lemon chicken kebab, grilled shrimp Caesar salad wraps, or lobster salad rolls. Our easy-to-carry picnic boxes come with your choice of a meal, as well as a dessert, beverage, and utensils. Order online for simple pickup options. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, and online at stewartsmarket.com.
Want a new experience in car buying? No aggravation, no confrontation, just answers to all your questions. Scap Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Car buying the way you want it to be. With one of the largest selections of new 2- and 4-door Jeep Wranglers available, we are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Located in Fairfield, Connecticut, we're easy to get to. Just 2.5 miles off the Merritt Parkway, exit 44 via Route 58 South. Save thousands right now at the summer clearance event. Going on now through July 31st.
I'm Tracy Masella, a licensed clinical social worker at Silver Hill Hospital in New Canaan. Join me each month as we talk with experts on the front lines of the treatment of mental health and addiction. Straight Talk with Tracy, a Silver Hill Hospital production, airs at 12 p.m. on the second Thursday of each month here on the HAN network.
Welcome to CT Pulse on the HAN network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, and happy to have on the line today Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff. Bob, thanks so much for coming back on CT Pulse.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, we're in mid-August right now, and there's no state budget approved. Is there any progress or any new roadblocks that you can tell us about in that respect? What's happening?
Well, you know, we're working day and night, working to reach consensus on a budget. There are a lot of difficult decisions, which is why it's taking extra long right now. So I will just say that there are a lot of people up in Hartford every day working very hard, and we're eagerly working to get to a consensus where a majority of legislators and the governor agree on something. We all understand too that running the state by executive order is not the way to do this, and most of us, if not all of us, want to get a budget done as quickly as possible, but get it done in a way that works for the people of the state of Connecticut.
Now, Bob, a lot of town leaders recently concerned about a letter from Governor Malloy's office asking for a lot of financial information. Many worried this could mean some major changes, obviously, in what towns receive from the state. What can you tell us?
Well, I don't know the genesis of the letter except to say that right now we have diminished resources available to municipalities. I mean, out of our $19-20 billion budget, $5 billion of that goes towards municipalities, 169 municipalities, 162 school districts. So quite a lot of money in our state budget does go to municipalities. I don't want to say why the governor sent the letter, except to say that right now the state of Connecticut is about 15% smaller than it was 10 years ago. and our state government is smaller, has shrunk. The amount of resources we can provide has shrunk, and many municipalities have not had the same kind of sacrifice throughout the last few years. And legislators worked very hard to keep municipal aid whole. But at this point, if there are communities that can more support themselves, and where the state can continue to invest in ideas and issues like education, funding reform, and transportation, and housing, and other core services of state government, especially in our larger municipalities, I think that's extremely important. And so we'll see what ends up happening with data that has been asked by the governor, and whether or not all towns comply with the request. I guess the answer is we'll see. But in an age of diminishing and limited resources, we have to make sure that every dollar that we spend is spent wisely and in a way that contributes to the overall well-being of the state of Connecticut.
Now, Bob, you're a Democrat. You represent Norwalk and Darien. What are you hearing from constituents? Has there been any frustration that you've heard?
Well, I think anytime that there's uncertainty, there's certainly frustration when legislatures and governors in the past were spending money that we didn't have and kicking the can down the road. People didn't really probably understand that. I certainly didn't understand that before I was in the legislature. So it seemed like everything was fine. Right now, we are confronting decades and decades of neglect and kicking the can down the road, and I think that does bring in a certain level of frustration and uncertainty when you're trying to do the right thing. But people also understand that this was not made overnight, and that we won't get out of this overnight either. But we're all working hard to make sure that we are growing our tax base and bringing jobs into the state of Connecticut and investing in things that had been overlooked for a long time as well. But you think about the fact of, say, our pensions and our long-term obligations, so much of that was from the 1980s and prior, and even with the agreement that Governor Rowland made back in the late 90s. All those things are coming back to haunt us, and right now it's a perfect storm of kind of limited economic expansion from a standpoint of the revenue that's been coming in based on a lot of issues from the financial industry, but also because of the fact that we have ignored these problems for so long that we now have to make those investments and also pay down those debts at the same time.
Now, speaking of pensions, you wrote a piece recently that was in the Darien Times that talked about employee labor agreements and the deal Democrats voted on. Republicans have been harsh about this deal, but you kind of spoke about what you see as the positives in it. Can you tell us your take on it and why you think it's a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Republicans really didn't have much of an argument when it came to this agreement. There was really not much they can say except that it didn't go far enough, but they didn't really ever say what they would have agreed to, and they just said that it tied the hands of future legislatures. If they were so concerned about that, then they should have really been more upset over the 20-year agreement John Rowland made in the 90s. But this agreement saves $24 billion over 20 years. And it also takes out 30% of our projected deficit for the next 2 years. And it also really reduces costs for state employees over the long term. 40% of our state employees are expected to be in what's this new Tier 4, which is when employees get hired, they are in certain tiers. Governor Moy made an agreement back about 6 years ago. I created Tier 3, and about 13% of our employees are in Tier 3. Now we're expected to have a lot of retirements, and we now are going to have a hybrid pension and defined contribution, defined benefit as well. So there'll be this hybrid plan, and so that will reduce costs, higher health care payments, higher pension payments for employees. Retirees are going to go on Medicare Advantage, which is going to save hundreds of millions of dollars in the next couple of years. So there's lots of savings that are built in on top of the savings that were done 6 years ago. That's projected to save $20 billion over 20 years. So if you look at current employees, our pensions are paid about 95 to 97%. When you factor in Tier 1, which ended in 1984, and we still have about 1,300 employees now, plus a lot of retirees, that's where all the debt has been racked up for billions and billions of dollars, and that's what's kind of choking our system. So we're getting a handle on that. We've been paying that down or paying into it, and keeping current employees' expenses lower. So that overall will have a very positive effect. And politically, Republicans made a political judgment that they could get something out of voting no, but the responsible thing was to vote yes on this.
All right. Well, Bob, taking a turn from state politics kind of to a national level, you spoke out just last week about a Norwalk woman, young Sarah Corville, who's been ordered by ICE to be deported back to her native Korea at the end of the month. And I know you said in that statement that you were going to reach out to ICE to kind of speak on her behalf. Can you tell us a little bit of background on this and how you got involved?
Yeah, Sarah Corville I've known for years. She's an acquaintance of mine. I have visited her flower shop, Sarah's Flowers in Norwalk. I've bought Christmas trees from her place over the years. Her and her family have been Norwalk residents for a long time. She's been in this country 18 years. She's been married 14 years, has 2 kids, sends her kids to All Saints Catholic School, and really is a model citizen from a standpoint of has built the business, has been contributed to our community, and has been a positive presence. And so when the president was running for election, he said he would only look to deport people who were undocumented, who had been criminals, which, by the way, President Obama did at a very high number. And so this and the last woman, Nuri in Norwalk, who has gotten a stay, have really been examples of going back on that promise of deporting people who have families here, who have done nothing wrong, have contributed to our communities, have posed no danger. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. And so I'm trying to work with folks to keep her here in Norwalk. I mean, she has a special needs child. She closed her business actually to better take care of her child. Sending her back to Korea would really be a mistake and does not do anybody any good except tear apart families.
Now, you also mentioned faith communities could potentially provide her sanctuary. Do you see that coming to be if necessary?
It's potential, but there are some roadblocks to that, and it's not as easy as just putting somebody in a church. I've learned over the last week it's a complicated process, and there are pitfalls for sure. But I think we have to look at every avenue. I do think the faith community needs to step up and say these kinds of things are wrong. We as a society won't stand for it, and we've got to speak up, just like people need to speak up about what happened in Charlottesville. I mean, these are things in our country right now where we don't need passive onlookers. We need people who are active, and we need people who are speaking up about things.
Yeah, now even though you're on the state level, are you hearing from a lot of constituents in Norwalk and Darien kind of about these national issues?
Absolutely. I put on my Facebook page, my Senate Majority Leader page, all the time when I think that things nationally are going wrong, because all those things do affect us on the state level. Even though I'm a state legislator, not a federal legislator, I do think that those things do have an impact on us here in Norwalk and Darien and Connecticut, and it's important for all of us as elected officials to speak up, but we also need citizens to speak up as well. And I do hear from a lot of people. They're very concerned. I think there's a level of stress in our country that we've never seen before. I think kids are very stressed because they're worried about what I heard a lot after the election was kids on school buses who were saying to their parents, and I heard this from a lot of people, Mom, are they going to take away, are they going to deport my friend, whatever their names are? And so there's a lot of stress even amongst children. And so that's why it's important for us to speak up and speak out against these kinds of actions.
Now, Bob, before we let you go, any prediction about when we may finally get a state budget hammered out?
Well, I'd like to get it done today if possible. That's not going to happen, but my prediction would be as soon as possible. And again, everybody's working hard on this. Nobody takes this lightly, and I think everybody understands the sense of urgency, and that's why we continue to work very hard to come to an agreement.
Now, Bob, any thoughts on the gubernatorial race as it's kind of shaping up?
A lot of candidates out there. We'll have to see what they say.
All right. All right. Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll be back with more CT Pulse after this.
School's out, the weather is hot, and the fish are biting. Whether you're heading to the beach or out on a boat, stop in at the dock shop before you go to fill your beach bag or tackle box with everything you'll need for fun in the sun. A new beach cover-up, some sunscreen, or just some bait, the dock shop has you covered from either location. 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport. And yes, you heard that right. Bait is now available in Darien and Westport. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport. DockShop.com.
If you've ever thought about owning a motor coach or learning about what it's like to travel the open road in superior style and comfort, then contact Dave's RV Center in Danbury, Connecticut. Offering the best quality Class A motorhomes from Newmar, travel trailers and fifth wheel lines from Surveyor, and a toy hauler line from Work and Play. Choose from Newmar's Gas Line, Bay Star and Canyon Star, or from Newmar's Diesel Line, Ventana and Dutch Star. And with unparalleled service and maintenance, Dave's RV is committed to keeping you and your motor coach safely on the road and enjoying it to the fullest. Stop by their showroom, 2 Industrial Plaza Road, Danbury, Connecticut, or call 877-483-3866.
Want a new experience in car buying? Scap Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram with one of the largest inventories of new 2- and 4-door Wranglers. We are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Come visit our new Ram Truck Center. Browse our websites, scapchryslerjeep.com or scapdodge.net to find the new Jeep, Chrysler Dodge car, minivan, or Ram truck you've been looking for. Just 2 miles from both I-95 or the Merritt Parkway exit 44. Save thousands right now at the Summer Clearance Event. Going on now through July 31st.
If you're watching this broadcast, you're not alone. The HAN network is available for 200,000 Connecticut cable customers on the Frontier network, and we've also reached more than 2 million viewers on our free live streaming sports, news, and entertainment broadcasts. To reach our rapidly growing audience, contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
CT Pulse on the HAN Network. It's time for some drawing conclusions with our award-winning cartoonist, Doug Smith, who just last week completed his 2000th cartoon for the HAN Network. Doug, congratulations.
Thank you.
Quite a milestone.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to this week's cartoons. Let's take a look. What do we have up first?
Hello?
Hello? Nope, we're just going to keep it on this because it's so good. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, UI will cut power temporarily on Saturday for a system check.
Yeah, that's running in Shelton and...
Yes.
Okay.
So this cartoon is running in Shelton because UI is doing a system check.
Right, also running in Easton.
Nice.
That's a good thing he has those wires holding him up so he didn't hit his head when he fell down.
He blacked out for a little bit, the poor guy. All right, let's take a look at what we have next. Oh, now this is great.
Oh, yeah.
They've been talking for a long time about how to keep people off the sandbar because it is very dangerous.
Yeah, they have to do something drastic. But the other problem is that they do have signs there that plainly say, stay off, it floods, danger. And people still walk out on it, yet yell at the state when something happens.
Right. So your idea, just put some sharks in there. I think that could work.
Either that or a billboard-sized sign just closing the entire thing off.
There you go. That could do it. All right. What do we have up next? Tell us about this one.
Oh, that's in Reading. Folks are complaining about the train whistle coming through town. And if you've ever been to that train station, you know the road seems to intersect in and out of the tracks. I think they have to constantly let people know they're coming through because of that, especially with commuters who drive like maniacs trying to beat the train.
Yeah, so it's apparently annoying some neighbors nearby. Now this next one is a big Ridgefield story. Bud Brown wants to open a winter club. This is you imagining him as opening a sandwich shop instead.
Have some fun with the winter club.
Yeah, and what is on a winter club? I just don't know.
I don't know. It's probably easier getting the club off than a deli in town, I guess.
Now, Doug, your next cartoon is actually perfect. I was able to use this as our featured image for today's show.
Oh, okay.
So I always love when we have some cohesion like that. But tell us about this one.
I guess Governor wants all towns to open their books so he can dole out monies proportionately. And, New Canaan and Darien have surpluses, and they figure they're going to get the shaft when it comes to getting their share.
Right.
They have more money. So
there's New Canaan hiding its reserves.
Exactly. And we use the same one for Darien. Just
All right, so
chant
Darian's wearing pink. Interesting choice.
Well, it's purple in the Photoshop,
okay.
but who knows what happens.
All right, tell us about this next cartoon we have coming
Oh, that's
up.
in Weston. We got the Lachat Farmers Market coming up. They want some volunteers, so I just had some fun drawing the old stereotypical corn pone farmer there, which I don't think those guys exist anymore. I think, you know, they now work millions of acres with technological equipment. So.
Well, they will forever exist in your cartoons.
Right.
So now, in case you didn't hear us earlier, because we forgot to put our microphones on, Doug just last week did his 2000th cartoon. So congratulations,
thank
Doug.
you.
That's really exciting. Do you ever run out of ideas?
No.
Because the
so far,
newspapers
no.
keep it going?
Yep. There's always something funny going on, and I just illustrate it.
All right. Any top cartoons you've ever done, your favorite that you can think of? Or are there too many to choose from?
I think offhand I'd have to say the Newtown one I did, which won the award, was more poignant. And,
that was the letter to Santa, right?
Right.
Or the request, and it was just for hugs.
Yeah, and it was one when John Kovacs came to me and said, "Can you do an illustration about this?" I'm like, "How am I going to come up with something for that?" You know, and it turned out to be my most popular one.
It's a beautiful cartoon. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, Doug, always making us laugh or cry in a good way. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we are going to wrap up this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. Now, next week, we are on the road for the FCAC Tour, so no CT Pulse, but you can follow all the tour action at HAN.network. Coming up today, Nutmeg Sports at 2 o'clock. We'll see you later.